Hey guys, Brian from Boas here. Well, we're quite a bit into the boa breeding season for 2022 here at Boas. Today I'm going to give you guys an update on where I'm at with my boa breeding trials. I'm going to show you guys some boas who I think are gravid. I'm going to show you some that I don't know yet, and also speculate on a few pairings that I don't think are going to be successful this year. I'm also getting a lot of questions from you guys about buying boas, so I'm going to briefly review my sales terms at the end. So be sure to stay tuned for that. So right now we're about 5 months into the breeding season. So if you've been following the channel, I paired my animals up in early to mid-November. And I actually did have my first litter, which was a surprise just last week, a litter of beautiful Pearl Island boas, Saboge boas. And these animals have shed, and hopefully they should start feeding soon. So I do have one litter on the ground, which is early. I mean, this is the earliest litter I've had. But I have a lot still in the works. Unfortunately, the Branchia boa, like this beautiful animal produced by my buddy Michael Beach, is not in the breeding trials for this year since they're too young. But hopefully I should have animals like this in a few years' time. I've understandably been getting a lot of questions from you guys about how my pairings are, and how is it looking on this type of boa, or do you think you're going to have this type of boa? And unfortunately at this point I really can't say for sure. I feel like about maybe 25% of my pairings appear to be gravid at this point, which is great. About 25% of them I don't think are going to be successful just based on what I've been watching, and then about 50% is still up in the air. But of course, just because I don't see any activity doesn't mean I'm going to get a litter, and vice versa. Sometimes I see a lot of breeding activity to my eye and I don't get anything. So it's just a crapshoot. Breeding boas is never guaranteed. You just have to put your pairings together and hope for the best. So one thing that I do is I keep them together a long time, and they're probably, many of my pairings will continue to be together until like May or even June, regardless of what I see, unless the female is obviously gravid, in which case I'll take the male out. But last year I made the mistake of maybe ending some of the pairings a little too early. I had a couple red tail pairings and the female was showing all the signs of being gravid. Coiled above the hot spot, she looks swollen, but she didn't end up being gravid, and I took the male out, and that was it. So this year I'm gonna leave that male in as long as I can, just to give every possible shot at producing some of these litters. So if you look at the dates of when locality boas are born in captivity, you'll of course notice that most of them are born over the summer, between June and August. Sometimes you'll have animals, especially true red tails, that are born September or even as late as October. So of course it's 120 days on average from ovulation to birth, and so that's about the period of when a female's gravid. And the female will start to show those signs after she ovulates, especially after she has her post-ovulation shed, at which point it's about 105 days to birth. So if you count back from those dates, keeping the animals together to get babies born, in that time range might take May or even as late as June if you're talking about a fall birth. So I think a lot of people, myself included last year, just removed the male a little too early. But it's a long period. I mean, I've been doing this breeding this year since November, so I'm now at about 5 months in, and when all is said and done, it's going to be another few more months for just the pairings. It's a full-time job breeding boas, and of course you never get a day off. So now I'm going to take the camera and I'm going to look in some of my enclosures and show you guys some of my females who appear to be gravid this year. 2022 is my first year to have some morph pairings, and it looks like a pretty good odds that we'll have some morph babies on the ground in a couple months. So here's one of the pairings, or one of the females I should say. This is a Hypomoron jungle, and I'm fairly certain she's gravid. She's just been kind of hugging the heat spot on this end of the cage, coiled up as you would expect, and her abdomen looks really swollen, so hopefully there's lots of nice babies in there. And this female I paired up with a VPIT positive male, and so my idea is to get some hets to basically be Morons, jungles, hypos, and all of the combinations that are het for VPIT positive. Then I can cross the hets together to generate the visuals with the Moran. And you know, the Moran and VPI, when you combine them together, it's just absolutely breathtaking. So I know that morphs are not the favorite of many of the viewers of this channel, and you know, I really like the diversity though. I like having the localities plus a few morph projects. Really keeps things interesting. And you know, I've been growing up these morph boas for quite a while now, so looking forward to hopefully having some babies on the ground in a few months. I have one more morph pairing this year which also looks like it might be successful. This is a Moran jungle female that I crossed with a Moran jungle male, and as you can see, she's looking quite thick around the middle there, just kind of hugging the hot spot on this end of the enclosure, not really moving around very much. So I'm really excited with this pairing because I've got, you know, two Morans crossed with each other. The super form Moran, which has two copies of the Moran gene, is quite spectacular. These animals are this really bright, deep red color, very noteworthy. So you don't really see them very often at all. So hopefully I'll be able to produce some super Morans, and I should statistically get about 25% super Morans from the babies. So we'll have to see what happens. But I'm quite happy with these morph pairings, and we'll hopefully have some nice litters of morph boas on the ground in a couple of months. So this one I would expect to get some Morans, some jungles, some super jungles, super Morans, maybe even a super Moran jungle, super Moran, super jungle. That will be quite spectacular. I'm just going to take a temperature reading of this female with my thermometer here. So she's looking like about 86, 87 degrees. So hopefully got some nice babies cooking in there. Most of my red tail pairings are still paired up because, you know, often these guys go till May or even June, and then they, you know, have babies late summer, early fall. But I do believe I have one gravid female. This is a Suriname, and lately she's just been completely hugging the hot spot. You can see coiled up like you would expect, and she's looking real thick around the middle, so hopefully lots of nice babies in there. But real excited. This is the holdback from my 2016 litter, and I have her paired up with a Prometheus bloodline male who's actually still in the tub. You can see him back there. I usually like to keep the male in there until I'm absolutely sure the female's gravid. You know, one way other than her appearance and her behavior is that the male is no longer interested, and this guy hasn't really shown any interest lately, so that's definitely a good sign. I probably will take him out in a little bit, maybe next week when I separate them to feed. Just gonna quickly check her temperature, which is kind of tricky to do and hold the camera. Let's see, what's she, 88.6, so that's looking good. She just needs to sit there and let the babies grow. So should be some real top-notch series from these two great bloodlines that I have going. Here's one more female that appears quite likely to be gravid. This is a longicata, long-tail boa, and last year was actually the first year I successfully produced these guys. This is actually a different pairing. Actually the male's still in there. He's kind of sitting on top of her, but if you look at her abdomen, she's looking pretty swollen, just hugging the heat spot. I think they're probably done mating. They mated quite a lot. This is one of the few pairs that I saw like active mating, and I saw hemipenes and the whole 9 yards. So hopefully this male was successful in doing its business. And she's just been hugging the hot spot. I'm pretty sure that she had a shed last week, which is the post-ovulation shed. I'm going to give her a temperature check. So she's at 87.8. So usually I just kind of check around. I want the hot spot to be about 90 so that the females will be, you know, about 88, 89 degrees. Get the babies cooking. And yeah, so this hopeful. Also, I mentioned these guys are actually het for aneurystic, or I've been told that they're het for aneurystic. So with any luck, we'll have some anery longicata on the ground. And I expect that this female will probably give birth sometime in around July or so, and she just had her post-ovulation shed. But great boa to work with, and hopefully I'll have some more of these beauties in a couple months. One more female that is showing all the signs of being gravid that I'll share with you today. This is a Croaky dwarf boa. So there she is, and you can see she's just tightly coiled, hugging the hot spot. Classic position for a gravid female. So this girl is actually one of the oldest animals in my collection. She's a 2005 animal produced by Gus Renfro, and actually have her with a male from Michael Beach, and they were successful 2 years ago, and so hopefully we'll repeat that. And you can see she's looking pretty big just sitting there. So I'm gonna just check her temperature. She's at 86. I usually check the surroundings, so it looks like the hot spot's reading about 85, 86. Sometimes the hot spots do vary. There's 87. So I'm probably going to go ahead and turn up the thermostat by a degree. I usually just kind of bump it up or down, keep them in the high 80s with the hot spot in the low 90s. But nice animal. Hopefully around July we should have some babies. And this is a great dwarf locality. One of my top favorites. Here's one of the many pairs I still have together, and as I mentioned, my red tails typically will go until May or even June, and this is a pair of Guyana true red tails. You can see I don't want to get too close to them and disturb them, but the male's been courting the female for quite a bit. See the tail's wrapped around her tail. This is actually a proven pair. They produced 2 litters for me previously, although I paired them up last year and wasn't successful, so hopefully this year will be different. So just give them some time and space to do their thing, and hopefully we'll have some baby Guyanas in sometime over the summer. Unfortunately, not all the pairings work out typically at any given year, and now I'm going to show you some of my pairings that I'm really not all that hopeful about this year. Doesn't mean I won't have them, it just means it's really not looking good at this point. And so I would say maybe about a quarter of the pairings fall under this. I really haven't seen much of any breeding activity. I've had pairings in the past where I saw nothing and I still got a litter, and conversely I've had pairings where I see a lot of activity but get nothing. So who knows? We'll just have to keep at it, but it doesn't look really good. And it looks like a lot of these pairings that aren't going to happen are the ones I most anticipate, which I guess is fitting because sometimes the more you want something, the less likely it happens, so to speak, or you just want stuff that's harder to get, But anyway, one of them is this. This is a Bolivian Amarali boa, boa constrictor Amarali, short-tailed boa. This is a Joe Terry Orange Crush bloodline. And this is actually the first year I paired these guys up. They're 2016 pair. This is actually the male. So one of the reasons I wanted this was this is really the only subspecies that's commonly available of boa constrictor that I haven't bred successfully is the Amarali, and it would have been nice to have accomplished that. There's been pretty much about 6 commonly available subspecies, and I've bred the other 5. It would be nice to accomplish that with the Amarali as well. Plus, there's such a great animal, really intelligent and pleasure to handle, great pet boa. Has a deserved, dedicated cult following that people like these boas. But we'll just have to see. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I have had several instances where a pair of boas just didn't breed the first year, and when I paired them up the following year I was successful. So that's probably what I'm going to end up doing with these guys, pairing them up again in 2023. And I don't have any fallback other than that, because this is my only pair of Amarali. As much as I would like to have some silverback Amarali, I don't have those. I'm not sure if I'm going to add them to the collection at this point because they've gotten so expensive and hard to get. Plus I've got so many boas already. But it really would be nice to have these beautiful Orange Crush Amarali breed for me. You can see how beautiful this male is, the beautiful purplish orange color and the beautiful face markings. Really a remarkable boa to look at, Orange Crush Amarali. Another really highly anticipated boa pairing that I don't think looks promising this year is this one. This is a aneurystic Paraguana Peninsula boa. And you may recognize this guy as the unofficial mascot of the Brian Boas YouTube channel. I used to have this guy in a lot of videos, but the last few months he's been together with his girlfriend, but I really haven't seen very much going on. So, not quite sure why. Maybe he's just stealthy. Maybe I'm going to be pleasantly surprised, but I'm really not going to keep my, or I'm not going to hold my breath on this one because I'm just not seeing a lot. And obviously this is a very visually striking and beautiful animal. It's an aneurystic form of a dwarf boa that occurs in a small peninsula in northwestern Venezuela. And I just love these animals. They're, you know, one of the coolest locality boas that you can get. Beautiful silvery gray color. The wild type form has kind of more of an orangey and, you know, different shades of brown, also quite striking. And, you know, I actually have a wild type pairing going on as well, a male and female that are wild type, and I'm not seeing much activity from them either. So it's really kind of hard that I might end up striking out on these Paraguana Peninsula boas with both pairings. I think next year, if I'm not successful this year, I'll probably swap the mates and I'll put this guy with my wild type female and put my aneurystic female with my wild type male. I think my wild types might be het for anery, so I could still get some visual aneries from those pairings. But, you know, at the least they would all be het for anery. So anyway, maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. You know, I really hope I'll be able to offer some of these beautiful animals to you guys this year because they're so hard to get and they're such a great boa to keep. You know, but maybe they're just harder to breed and maybe that's why we see so few of them. I don't know. Anyway, fingers crossed, and maybe we'll see some. Maybe we'll have some of these Paraguana Peninsula boas. One more pairing for this year that unfortunately isn't looking really promising right now is this one. This is a North Brazilian red-tailed boa. And as you guys know, if you've been following the channel, the true red-tails are really my bread and butter. And at least half my collection are true red-tails. Just love breeding these guys and have quite a lot of diversity as far as different localities and bloodlines of true red-tails. And although I produced the Guyana, Suriname, and Peruvian red-tails multiple times in the past, I haven't successfully bred these northern Brazilian red-tails. And I actually tried for the first time last year. You know, I have a pair, I think they're 2014s, that came from basically Boas. Put the male and female together. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. This year I actually used multiple males, and this is actually my female from Vin Russo, from his Lemke bloodline. She's not breeding this year. I just, you know, grabbed her just for this video. But my male from this bloodline is in there with my female from the basically Boas bloodline, and I'm swapping them, the males, in and out and using two males at once. But I really haven't seen much so far. So not really hopeful that I'm going to have these northern Brazilians this year. This girl will be ready next year, so we'll be able to pair her up next year. And hopefully, if I'm not successful this year, she'll be ready to go. But I mean, who knows? You know, all you need is one link in the whole chain to go bad as far as what you need to do to reproduce boas. And it might be that for whatever reason, the female that I have isn't attractive to the two males. You know, or maybe she's just not really that fertile. I mean, who knows? But it's challenging. I mean, you know, you can't really count your boas before they're born, so to speak. You really have to just keep at this and try a lot of different things and try different animals together until you're successful. And, you know, a lot of times you're just not going to be successful. But you just can't quit breeding boas. It's an activity where persistence is definitely necessary. And hopefully, if I stick with it long enough, I'll be successful at producing these northern Brazilian red-tails. I've been getting a lot of inquiries from you guys about possibly acquiring some of my babies, so I'm just going to spend the last few minutes of this video reviewing some of my sales policies. Thought I'd grab this guy. This is my VPI male, who I paired up with that Hypomoran jungle female that I showed you, who I am fairly certain is gravid. And I didn't actually see any copulation between these animals, and I didn't even really see this guy courting her very much. So I guess maybe he's one of the stealthy ones, you know, or maybe I'm mistaken that she's not gravid, but hopefully he just does it kind of in secret. But beautiful VPI male. I always love VPI, and it's one of those genes that even by itself, it's just, you know, so spectacular. So my sales terms, so I don't know when I'm gonna have, okay? Until the babies are on the ground, I can't guarantee anything. So all of the apparently gravid females you saw, there's still quite a ways to go until the babies are born. Something could go wrong, or they could have slugs, or maybe they're not gravid, who knows? So I can't really guarantee anything. As you may know, I recently had a small litter of Pearl Island Boas, so at least we'll have some Pearl Island Boas available this year. That, you know, I can guarantee at this point. As far as the prices, I don't know the prices until after the babies are born. I have to look at the number of babies, the quality of the babies, figure out what I'm holding back, etc. Typically, my prices are pretty consistent with the market. So if you go onto the online reptile classifieds like Fauna or King Snake or Morph Market, see what other people are selling theirs for. Mine are going to be somewhere in that ballpark. I don't do waiting lists. I've done a whole video on why I don't do waiting lists. But it's basically first come, first serve when the babies are ready to go, which is typically about 1.5 to 2 months after they're born. A lot of you guys ask about what the best way is of guaranteeing that you're going to get a baby. Well, unfortunately, I can't guarantee that anyone is going to get babies. I can't even guarantee I'm going to have the babies. But, you know, if you want the best shot, just continue to stay tuned to this channel, because I'll continue to give updates on my litters and, you know, which ones have been born and, you know, when the babies are going to be available. It's the best way for up-to-date information on my baby availability. In fact, I have a few babies left over from 2021, and I was overwintering them, getting them established. They're going to be ready to go in a couple weeks. I just have to take pictures and make sure they're all ready to go. But these babies will be available probably in the next few weeks. So I'll plan on doing a video about those guys before they go on sale. But just stay tuned, and hopefully you'll be able to get the boa you want. That was a look at my breeding trials and the current status of them, and I'm pretty confident that I'll have some really nice babies on the ground in another few months. So really happy with how the breeding season has gone so far. I hope you enjoyed the video and it was informative. As always, shoot me any questions or comments you might have. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your boas.